Chapter 41, Broken into Pieces. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Li Guanhai. Li Guanhai. Li Guanhai, come out, Yang Chana yelled, her face turned red with anger and her eyebrows stood up. The green flag guards didn't say anything more. The young master's words just now were enough to prove that the little girl in front of him had a close relationship with him, and they didn't dare to offend him, but they didn't plan to let the little girl in. Now the young master needs to retreat to heal his wounds. Having such a noisy little girl around will definitely disturb the young master. Not far away, Xiahou Aoxue's dark eyebrows wrinkled more and more tightly, and she moved to the side of Yang Chana, who had bulging cheeks. Her narrow eyes were deep and calm, and her expression did not change at all. She exudes the majesty of an emperor who dominates the world, making people dare not look at her. What is your relationship with Li Guanhai? Xiahou Aoxue's voice was calm and indifferent, somewhat similar to Li Guanhai. Yang Chana looked at her and looked her up and down. First she was surprised by her stunning beauty, and then she asked, "Who are you?" "Xiahou Immortal Dynasty, Xiahou Aoxue." Xiahou answered like this, his voice was calm and without any waves. "Oh, she turns out to be my good brother's fiancée." Yang Chana snorted and crossed her arms across her chest, looking like she didn't want to see her. "Elder brother." Xiahou Aoxue caught this word very keenly and couldn't help asking, "Are you his sister?" "No," Yang Chana said angrily, "that guy knows how to bully others, I don't want to be his sister." Xiahou Aoxue suddenly felt enlightened. It seems that this little girl is indeed Guanhai's sister, but for some reason, there is some unpleasantness between them. This also explains why Li Guanhai saved her before, and why he ignored her after saving her. Thinking of this, Xiahou Aoxue felt much more relaxed, and a breathtakingly beautiful smile appeared on her face as if the ice and snow were melting. "Your brother is seriously injured and needs time to retreat to heal. Please don't disturb him." Hearing this, Yang Chana, who was about to continue shouting, finally stopped, but the real person looked a little lost and confused. Xiahou Aoxue had a change of thought in her mind, and gradually lured her back to the palace where she lived. Inside the palace, Li Guanhai asked Li Ningxuang to step back, and then tried to force the yin energy that had penetrated into his bone marrow out of his body. This yin qi is extremely strange and difficult to control. If he hadn't locked his heart veins immediately just now, I'm afraid that all the flesh and blood in his body would have been corroded by now. Although his injuries looked horrific, they were actually not serious. For a monk in the Xuanhuan realm, an arm can be regenerated in an instant. It's just that the corrosive effect of this yin qi is extremely strong and will prevent the body from regenerating, so it's a bit troublesome. Just when Li Guanhai was thinking about how to deal with the yin qi in his body, he suddenly had an idea and thought of the immortal cauldron of creation. The immortal cauldron of creation can swallow all things and create all things. Although this yin qi is strange, it may not be able to swallow it. Thinking of this, Li Guanhai waved his sleeve and threw the immortal cauldron of creation into the air. A majestic suction burst out, and wisps of purple energy visible to the naked eye were pulled out of Li Guanhai's body and sucked into the immortal cauldron of creation. Li Guanhai was overjoyed. This immortal cauldron of creation is indeed the ancient treasure of chaos that created the world, and its power is unimaginable. In just 2 sticks of incense, all the yin qi in Li Guanhai's body was sucked out, and he suddenly felt refreshed. At this time, the mouth of the immortal cauldron of creation suddenly spit out a ball of light purple energy, suspended in the air. "This is..." Li Guanhai was a little confused, then he opened his qi and tried to absorb a little, and his face suddenly showed a look of surprise. This ball of energy is actually purified yin qi. Inhaling it into the body, not only does it not feel uncomfortable at all, but it can also be perfectly integrated into one's own spiritual power, and it also adds corrosive properties. Li Guanhai couldn't help but raise the corners of his mouth, and the smile on his face could not be suppressed. This is really an unexpected surprise. I didn't expect that the yin qi purified by the creation immortal cauldron would actually become an excellent tonic. What would happen if all the yin qi of the entire Mingshan mountain were purified and absorbed? Thinking of this, his heart became hot, but he soon thought that the key was that it would take too long to do so. The endless veins of Mingshan mountain are hundreds of millions of miles away from the upper realm. There is more yin qi than the sea water of the infinite sea. Does it have to be refined until the year of the monkey and the month of the horse? If a space wormhole can be opened in Mingshan Mountain and connected to the immortal cauldron of creation, then even if it is thousands of miles apart, yin qi will be continuously input into the cauldron, ready for absorption and refining at any time. But what troubles Li Guanhai is that he does not have the means to open a wormhole in space, let alone connect the wormhole to the immortal cauldron of creation. Thinking of this, Li Guanhai had no choice but to suppress this thought and wait. Until he returned to find a solution. Now that the injury has recovered, it's time to fuse the 3 world seeds and refine the other world. As he thought, 3 seeds surging with green light flew into the air, began to spin rapidly, and slowly merged. Just when Li Guanhai was unable to come out of seclusion, the outside world was already shocked by a piece of news. The life tablet of Beili Lian, the most outstanding genius in Xianyong City today, was broken. Once the news came out, it instantly became the focus of the entire upper world. Xianyong City is one of the top Taoist traditions in the upper world. It can decide the fate of countless people with one move of a hand and a single move. It can be said to be extremely powerful, and now, the son whom the ruler of Ganyong City loved the most and had the highest hopes for died inexplicably. It is conceivable that his anger will implicate countless innocent people. The protective character of this ruler of Ganyong City is known to the world. After Beili Lian died, he began to use thundering means to capture those cultivators who had entered the Mingshan Jumai and searched their souls. The so-called soul search is to forcibly open the other party's sea of consciousness and check the memory. This method is extremely cruel. The person whose soul is searched will be extremely painful, and the soul will be irreversibly damaged. Even more serious, it will even turn him into an idiot. The reason why Beili Xiong did this was because he did not believe that his son would die in the Yin spirit or the killing array. There must be someone with bad intentions who killed his son. This storm swept the entire upper realm. Those cultivators who had a sect as a backer were not so panicked. After all, there was someone to support them. Although Gan Yongcheng is the top power in the upper world, it did not dare to risk the world's disapproval and capture these sect disciples to search their souls, and those poor casual cultivators were frightened, and they were on edge every day. They were afraid that a few people would suddenly rush out from the corner and capture them for soul searching. Gan Yongcheng's unreasonable behavior lasted for 7 days, and finally many gods and immortal sects who could not stand it joined forces to put pressure on him, and then he stopped. During these 7 days, Xiahou Aoxue and Yang Channer's relationship became better and better. The two lived in the same hall and lived together day and night. It is hard to imagine that Xiahou Aoxue, who has a cold personality and a majestic temperament like an emperor, would live with Yang Channer day and night for 7 days. After a few days of getting along, Xiahou Aoxue liked this seemingly indifferent, but actually pure and innocent little girl. During this period, she also asked about some secrets indirectly and knew a little about what happened in the past. Chapter 42, each with his own hidden agenda, the love tribulation of the Immortal Fairy. You are listening at novelfull.audio. During these 7 days, Li Guanhai had been in seclusion, without any movement. If it weren't for the fact that his breath could still be sensed, everyone would have thought something had happened. The divine ship returned to Daoxian Palace on the 3rd day. Yang Channer didn't seem to want to see someone from Daoxian Palace, so she left early. Before leaving, she sneaked into Li Guanhai's palace, wanting to go in and see him, but was caught by Li Ningshuang. The plan was exposed, and Yang Channer was furious. She made a fuss outside the palace for a long time and was finally driven away. After the soul-searching storm in the upper realm passed, another piece of news swept the world. It was the young master Guanhai of the Yunwei Division who risked his life alone to save a woman trapped in the Yin Qi and rescued her. He himself was also seriously injured and invaded by the Yin Qi. Once this news came out, it immediately became the topic of conversation for countless cultivators after dinner. Some people say that the rumors about Li Guanhai's cold-bloodedness are all false, and he is actually a gentle gentleman. Some people say that he is cold-faced but warm-hearted, compassionate, and cannot stand the ugliness of the world. Others say that he treats his enemies as ruthlessly as the severe winter, and treats his friends as warmly as spring. He is a gentleman who hates evil and cares about the world. For a time, Li Guanhai's image was changing imperceptibly in the eyes of the cultivators in the upper world, and the major divine sects and Taoist sects have expressed their desire to visit the young master Guanhai and handed over their business cards. It is clear what these people are planning. They just want to see how badly Li Guanhai has been hurt so that they can have a better idea. The upper world now looks harmonious and peaceful on the surface, but this is because no Taoist sect has the power and foundation of the upper world, otherwise the upper world would have been in chaos long ago. Looking back at the endless years, there are too many such things, but no one has ever done it. If there is any force that is most likely to do it, it is definitely the Yunwei Division. Yunwei is an ancient force that survived the chaos of Zhou. After countless years, its foundation is unimaginable. This is also the reason why all the major divine sects and Taoist sects are most afraid of it, and Li Guanhai can be called the first person in the history of Yunwei. He has 4 spirits coexisting, outstanding talent, and is known as a god. This makes many forces that have always been worried about the dominance of Yunwei even more worried. Li Guanhai is too dazzling, and he is the future ruler of Yunwei. Once he grows up, the pattern of the upper world may change drastically, and now, in order to save an unrelated person, Li Guanhai has been invaded by Yin Qi and is seriously injured and difficult to heal. This makes all the divine sects and Taoist sects very happy. The horror of Yin Qi is known to the world. Even if it is contaminated a little, the heart and origin of Taoism may be damaged, and Li Guanhai's entire arm was corrupted, and the Yin Qi had already penetrated into the bone marrow and attacked the heart veins. Even if the Yunwei Division tried their best to keep him alive, he would become a mediocre person in the future and would no longer pose any threat. So all forces could not wait to come to see what was going on. Under the guise of a visit, Li Guanhai stayed in Daoxian Tiangong for 3 days before returning to the Yunwei Division. During this period, Li Guanhai had never left his house. No one had seen him, let alone knew what his current situation was. After this news came out, all forces were more certain of their guesses. Li Guanhai must have been seriously injured, otherwise why would he stay indoors? For a time, countless divine sects and Taoist sects set out for the Yunwei Division. Among these forces, some were sincere, some were false, and some even had ill intentions. In short, it was a gathering of wind and clouds, and everyone had their own agenda. The Baikan Palace is located in a place surrounded by fairy mist and without any dust. Dozens of divine mountains and fairy islands are suspended in the air, and the breeze blows, and the fairy islands move with the wind. Rays of light penetrated the clouds and fell, shining on the fairy island, looking extremely sacred. A gap opened in the hidden sex formation, and several streams of light streaked through the air, and finally separated and flew towards the fairy islands. One of the streams of light flew to the largest fairy island, and the divine light dissipated, revealing a beautiful figure with a light veil on her face and fluttering clothes. It was the Immortal Fairy. She stepped on the ground with her slender feet and floated in front of a palace built of white jade. She bowed slightly and said in an ethereal voice, "Master, the disciple is back. Come in." The golden wind blew, and the heavy hollow door of the hall opened to both sides, and an old voice came out. The Immortal Fairy walked into the hall, passed through the white curtains fluttering in the wind, and an old woman leaned on a cane and stood in front of a wheel of reincarnation surrounded by stars. "Master," she called softly, respecting the old man in front of her very much. "Yenner, is this trip going well?" the old woman asked in a hoarse voice. Fairy Wugo nodded gently. "Well, just as Master calculated, this trip went very smoothly, and the lost item has been found." "Did you see him?" the old woman asked. Fairy Wugo lowered her eyebrows and answered softly, "Yes." The old woman gently poked her cane and turned half of her face to the side. "How is it?" "Gentle as jade, thunderous means." Fairy Wugo was silent for a while and gave this 8-word comment. The master and disciple were talking about, of course, the young master of the Yunwei Division, Li Guanhai. The old woman had calculated a month ago that something big would happen when leaving Mingshan Jumai, and she also calculated that her disciple would definitely meet Li Guanhai on this trip. She could never see through this person who might bring disaster to the upper world in the future. Even if she used the treasure of the Baikan Palace, the Qianquan Samsara disc, she could not deduce his past and present lives. There is only one explanation for this situation, that is, this person is beyond the 6 realms and not in the 5 elements. He is the only change that caused the great evolution number to escape. To put it simply, all things in the world will develop according to a certain trajectory. The appearance of Li Guanhai completely disrupted the destiny, changed the fate of countless people, and broke the heavenly reincarnation of the great evolution number. Alas! The old woman sighed and said faintly, Yenner, your tribulation, is here. Tribulation? What tribulation? Please tell me, master. Fairy Wugo was stunned and suddenly became a little nervous. Love tribulation, but also death tribulation. Love tribulation. Who is he? Fairy Wugo's heart beat faster, and she had an ominous premonition. Alas! The old woman sighed again and tapped the Xuanhuan samsara disc lightly with her cane. The wheel of reincarnation rotated rapidly, and the dazzling ripples spread out, which turned into a strange mirror image of the galaxy in the hull. Countless points of light gathered on the wheel of reincarnation, forming a shimmering picture. In the picture, a figure in white clothes stood in the wind. Although there was only a blurry back, it was still stunning. With an inviolable coldness, the pupils of the Immortal Fairy shrank suddenly outside the veil, and her body trembled heavily. She murmured in disbelief, "Is it, him?" Chapter 43, The Gathering of Forces and the Wealth of Wealth. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Yunwei Division, Inner Island. Since Li Guanhai came back, one name card after another flew to the General Flag Master Li Yuan. Li Yuan sat in front of the dragon table in the temple, flipping through the name cards casually with a sneer on his face. Hee, a bunch of rats, only know some sneaky tricks, it's ridiculous. Li Yuan stood up, walked to the door of the palace, stood with his hands behind his back, looking at the floating mountains and islands, muttering to himself, after tens of thousands of years of planning, my Yunwei Division is finally going to take that step. His eyes were far-reaching, sharp and indifferent. After standing at the door of the palace for a long time, Li Yuan suddenly called out, Yan Gu. As soon as the voice fell, a man with a ghost face appeared behind him. His voice was slow and hoarse, mysterious and gloomy. Master, what do you want? Let someone set up a banquet at Xinshao Peak to entertain those Taoist friends from the divine sect. Li Yuan's voice was light, without any ripples. Yes, my lord. Yan Gu's figure gradually became transparent and blurred, and disappeared with a breeze. At the same time, the strong and talented people from the major divine sects and Taoist sects all set out and were on their way to the Yunwei Division. On the other side, in the palace, Li Guanhai sat on a throne with his eyes closed. His face looked very pale, without a trace of blood, and his breath was also very weak and unstable. He just sat there quietly, elegant, indifferent, and cold as water, as if he was isolated from the world. Li Ningxuang looked at his weak appearance, and her heart was about to break. Master. She spoke softly, with worry in her eyes. Li Guanhai heard her call, opened his eyes and looked at her, then a faint smile appeared on his face. Don't worry, I'm fine. He then asked, where has Chana gone these days? Hearing this, Li Ningxuang shook her head and smiled bitterly. According to the master's instructions, Ningxuang sent 3 Xuanhuan realm masters to secretly protect Miss Chana. I don't know how they were discovered. Miss Chana was very angry, scolded the master, and drove them away. Oh. Scold me? What did she scold me for? Li Guanhai raised his eyebrows and showed an interested smile on his face. This. Li Ningxuang pursed her red lips, hesitated for a long time, and said, he scolded the master for being despicable and shameless, and he only knew how to bully people. Sooner or later, she will seek revenge on the master. After speaking, she hurriedly stopped talking and carefully observed the changes in Li Guanhai's expression, fearing that he would be angry. However, to Li Ningxuang's surprise, Li Guanhai was not angry, but smiled instead. This girl has a bad temper. It seems that I have to give her a good beating next time I see her, so as not to let her get swollen again. Li Ningxuang smiled but said nothing, but she felt a little sour in her heart and was very envious. When has the master ever doted on someone so much? I have been with the master for 20 years, but I have never enjoyed such honor and favor. The girl who suddenly appeared is so lucky, it is simply a blessing from 10 lifetimes. Li Guanhai is good at calculating people's hearts, and he is best at observing words and expressions. He saw what Li Ningxuang was thinking at a glance and couldn't help but chuckle. Ningxuang, how old are you? Why are you jealous of a little girl? Hearing this, Li Ningxuang raised her eyebrows and seriously retorted, I am not very old, and I am not jealous. Li Guanhai smiled, stopped talking, and continued to close his eyes and regulate his breath. Li Ningshuang bit his lower lip, stood in the palace for a long time, and finally left quietly. In the past few days, Li Guanhai did not fight against the yin qi in his body as the world said, but absorbed and refined the wisp of heavenly qi. That wisp of heavenly qi was the reward Li Guanhai received when he killed the Son of Luck in Tianshui ancient domain. It contained extremely strong power of law and was extremely mysterious. The reason why he did not absorb and refine it at that time was because his cultivation level was not enough. Now that he has reached the Xuanhuan realm and comprehended the power of law, he can naturally swallow this wisp of heavenly qi. After refining the heavenly qi, Li Guanhai felt that his power of law had been transformed and was much stronger than before. The heavenly qi is worthy of being the treasure created by heaven and earth, and its preciousness is no less than that of the Xuanhuan Mother Qi. In fact, there is also heavenly qi for sale in the Systems Points Mall, but the price is too expensive. A fist-sized heavenly qi costs 50,000 points. Although Li Guanhai wanted it very much, he had to give up the idea temporarily because he was short of money. After he got rid of the next Son of Luck or established a bond with the second Daughter of Luck, the points should be enough. In addition to absorbing and refining the energy of heaven, Li Guanhai also successfully nurtured the inner world. The inner world is a world imagined in the sea of consciousness. Although it is imagined, it really exists. Any change in the world can be changed with just one thought of the host. Li Guanhai's imagination is not very good. He temporarily created his inner world into a lively paradise with various wild deer, hares and other creatures. That's all, and he inserted the magic weapon on the highest peak in the inner world. The darkness twisted in the air, like a crazy tide flowing back to the 9 heavens. The evil ghosts cried, hideous and terrifying. 7 days passed in a blink of an eye. On this day, the Yunwei Division was more lively than ever before. Layers of protective formations were opened to welcome guests from all directions. A golden avenue leading directly to Shinchao Peak on the inner island stretches across the sky, with thousands of rays of light and auspiciousness. From the teleportation array that leads to various areas, figures are constantly coming out, each one shrouded in divine radiance and dazzling with precious light. All kinds of rare and exotic beasts, carrying heavenly materials and earthly treasures, came in droves with great momentum, heading towards the inner island along the Golden Road. The White Tiger clan presents a bottle of foam cries blood. The Ming Snake clan presents 99 branches of Tianyuan Poria. Tongyu Valley offers a box of the 10,000 years White Fu God. The shouts of various gifts came and went, resounding throughout the outer islands of Yunwei Division. There are even many great sects who start shouting before people even step out of the teleportation array, as if they are afraid that others will not know that they have given something away. It's no wonder that in such an occasion, the competition is about face. Whoever gives a big gift will have face, which also shows that the person's family is rich. If the gift cannot be delivered, they will inevitably be ridiculed, and even the sect behind them will become a laughing stock. They cannot bear this responsibility. As a result, all the powerful men from the Immortal sect and the Taoist tradition developed a mentality of comparison. The treasures they offered were always more valuable than the others, and no one was willing to lose face. This is the so-called fight between gods and mortals in ecstasy. The more fiercely they compete, the happier the gift-receiving deacon of Yunwei smiles. All the forces sent elders and geniuses, and also gave them heavy gifts, just to visit a junior, which was a great deal of face. Of course, they didn't dare not give him face. If they offended Yunwei, their lives would be difficult in the future. It can be seen from this that how important Yunwei is in the hearts of the great masters of the upper world. More and more Taoist forces walked out of the teleportation array, presented gifts, and headed towards the inner island on the dazzling golden avenue filled with flowers like rain. A girl with glowing white skin dressed in men's clothing mingled with the crowd and followed the Immortals on the Golden Road. This girl is none other than Yang Chaner, who threatened to teach Li Guanhai a lesson in the future. Chapter 44, Eating and Drinking for Free. The visitor has bad intentions. You are listening at novelfull.audio. She heard that various forces were going to visit Yunwei Division and visit Li Guanhai, so she came up with a plan, disguised herself as a man, and sneaked into the team. As a result, this girl really succeeded. As soon as she walked out of the teleportation array, she heard the shouts of those forces and sects giving gifts, which hit her heart. Why? She worked so hard in Mingshan Jumai for several days to collect more than a dozen medicinal herbs, and almost died in it, but this annoying Li Guanhai, who obviously did nothing, has so many people rushing to give him gifts, and all the gifts are extremely expensive. This made young Chana, who grew up poor and had some money-loving attributes, extremely unbalanced, angry and bulging cheeks, very unhappy. When she thought that the guy was richer than herself and countless times richer, young Chana complained, as if all the money was robbed from her by Li Guanhai. She cursed Li Guanhai in her heart and swore that she would teach him a lesson in the future and make him return all the money to her. Following the various sects walking on the golden avenue with brilliant clouds, looking at the divine islands and mountains hidden in the mist below, young Chana was hit hard again. She thought that the divine mountain where she grew up was already magnificent, but compared with the Yunwei Division in front of her, it was simply a world of difference. It's not that the environment she lives in is very bad. On the contrary, it is a pure land with white mist and fairy air. It is an extremely beautiful paradise. It's just that in terms of grandeur, it is far inferior to the Yunwei Division. Although the place where she lives is good, it is only a few thousand miles in radius, while the Yunwei Division occupies hundreds of millions of miles of territory, which is completely incomparable. Young Chana was angry and suddenly had an idea of revenge. She couldn't help but curl her lips and make a small calculation. The elders of the major sects and the geniuses came to the inner island of Yunwei Division and stepped onto the Shinshao Peak. In front of an extremely majestic palace, Li Yuan stood with his hands behind his back, as if he was waiting here specially. Everyone was shocked and did not dare to neglect it. They came forward to greet him. Lei Jing of the White Tiger clan greets the Lord General Flag Master. Lu Xing of the Wood Spirit clan greets the Lord General Flag Master. Ji Yu of the Beiwu Sword Domain greets the Lord General Flag Master. Li Yuan did not put on any airs, returned the greetings one by one, and invited the guests into the palace. When Li Yuan's eyes swept over young Chana, who was dressed in men's clothes but had glowing white skin, his brows slightly frowned. Young Chana naturally noticed his gaze, and immediately felt a terrifying pressure coming on her, and the blood in her body could not stop surging. Just when she thought her disguise was exposed and was about to run away, Li Yuan moved his eyes away from her and continued to greet the elders of the major sections. Didn't he see it? Thinking of this, young Chana couldn't help but breathe a sigh of relief. Li Yuan's cultivation was too profound and unfathomable. Just a glance almost made her mentally collapse. This made young Chana retreat a little, and she was entangled in whether to carry out the next plan. It would be terrible if she was discovered. She followed the crowd into the palace, looking around with her big eyes, searching for Li Guanhai's figure, but to her disappointment, Li Guanhai was not in the palace. Could it be that the rumors outside were true? Li Guanhai was really injured by the yin qi. Thinking of this, young Chana inexplicably became a little worried, and she didn't know why she had such emotions. This made her both entangled and distressed, and the strong men of the major sects also speculated in their hearts that Li Guanhai had not shown up for a long time, and he was probably tortured by the yin qi and was not a human being. In order to prevent the Yunwei Division from becoming a laughing stock in the upper world, he did not show up. Many Tianjiao sneered in their hearts. In the past, they had always lived under the halo of Li Guanhai and had no chance to make a breakthrough, but now, their chance has come. As long as they seize the opportunity this time, they will surely become famous in the upper world and become a figure that everyone pays attention to. As Li Yuan walked in, the discussion in the palace gradually subsided. Everyone looked at the man with a terrifying and vast aura, and his every move exuded a sense of supreme majesty, and they were in awe. No matter what purpose they had in coming to Yunwei Division this time, the man in front of them was definitely in existence that they could admire. Li Yuan was a legend of the era and created countless myths. Whether in terms of talent or wisdom, he was the best in the world. He deserves respect and admiration. Li Yuan came to the first seat and motioned for all the guests to take their seats. The banquet began, and the nectar made from stalactites that had been brewed for thousands of years was served on the table one after another. It was mellow and fragrant, and the spiritual energy was bursting. Such a glass of wine could be sold for unimaginable numbers in the outside world, but it was served up one pot after another. Many Taoist forces secretly smacked their lips, and once again sighed at the profound foundation of the Yunwei Division, which was really terrible. The seating arrangement for this banquet was also particular. The more powerful the force, the closer the seat, and vice versa. And young Chana, a girl who fished in troubled waters, ate and drank for free, and even had ill intentions, was naturally arranged very far back, almost being arranged outside the palace, which made her very angry, but she didn't care to be angry, because the fairy wine and delicacies on the table were so delicious, and they were very helpful for cultivation, and she didn't want to miss them. While she ate without caring about her image, she took advantage of no one's attention to stuff a lot of fairy wine and delicacies into the Xuanhuan bag to save for later. It's okay to eat and drink for free, but also to pack them up and take them away. While eating, young Chana expressed her disapproval of Li Guanhai in her heart, eating these things all day long. No wonder his cultivation progressed so fast. Even if he was a pig, he could soar to the sky if he ate fairy wine and delicacies every day. It seems that this guy's talent is not very good, but he is just lucky. Thinking of this, young Chana's confidence grew more and more. She was confident that as long as she refined that thing, her cultivation would soon catch up with Li Guanhai, and then she would teach him a lesson. At this moment, a rumbling sound suddenly came from the sky, and the sound resounded through the world for a long time. The guests looked outside the palace, frowned together, and were a little unhappy. Who is so arrogant? He dared to be so high-profile and arrogant when he came to the territory of Yunwei Division. Does he want to live? The next moment, a hearty laugh came rolling, and the momentum was so overwhelming that it seemed to collapse the void. Linghu Tua of the Daoxian Palace, bring a divine refined demon spirit. A young man dressed in black, with a burly figure, thick eyebrows and big eyes stepped into the palace, walking like a dragon and a tiger, with a dignified demeanor, followed by a thin servant. The man went straight to the first seat, bowed to Li Yuan and said, Junior Linghu Tua of the Daoxian Palace, meet the General Flag Master. Li Yuan's eyes were indifferent, his face expressionless, just looking at him quietly. Is he coming with bad intentions? Chapter 45, Do you have any objection to the qualifications I gave you? You are listening at novelfull.audio. Linghu Tua felt an invisible pressure coming down on him, and he couldn't help but feel dazed and breathless. He was horrified in his heart, and his arrogance had also restrained a lot. He did not dare to be as careless and arrogant as before. This junior came to the banquet in a hurry, for fear of being a step late, so he was a little reckless. Please, Mr. Chief Flag Master, please don't behave like this junior. Linghu Tua bowed and saluted with respect, feeling fearful of the man sitting in the first place. This person's aura is too strong, and his cultivation is even more unpredictable. If he is angered, he will probably turn into ashes in an instant, and his body and soul will be destroyed. At the head of the table, the coldness in Li Yuan's eyes dissipated a little. He nodded and said calmly, In that case, let's take a seat. Thank you, Lord Flag Master. Linghu Tua saluted again and walked directly to the vacant seat next to him. Wait a minute. At this time, Li Yuan's voice sounded faintly, majestic and calm. The seats here are not for you, go to the back. As soon as these words came out, the entire majestic palace suddenly became audible. All the guests stopped moving, the smiles on their faces disappeared, and their eyes fell here. Linghu Tuo's face was very ugly. His rather heroic face had turned the color of pig liver at this moment. Li Yuan humiliated him in this way in front of all the Taoists, making him unable to step down. This made him angry and resentful, but he was helpless. So what if you're angry? How dare he say he can't do it? This is the Yunwei Division, not the Hanging Palace. Even if you are bullied by the sky, you have to endure it. If you can't help it, then you will be forced into the imperial prison, suffer 108 kinds of torture, and then die. Linghu Tuo's hair stood on end at the thought of the imperial prison, which was like an 18th level of hell. How could he dare to show any dissatisfaction? He forced a smile on his face that was uglier than crying, turned around and walked back, aware of the playful glances from the elders and geniuses of various sects. Linghu Tuo's face was burning, and he wanted to find a crack in the ground to crawl in. He was really embarrassed today. Not only was he embarrassed, but the hanging hall also became a laughing stock. After all, Linghu Tua is the most outstanding genius of the current generation of the Xianxian Palace, and everything he says and does outside represents the face of the Xianxian Palace. Today, Ling Hutua is defeated and disgraced in the Yunwei Division. By the way, his face is also disgraced in the upside-down hall. He will be ridiculed by all the orthodoxies. If you don't have diamonds, don't take up the porcelain job. If you dare to come to Yunwei Division to show off your power, what's the difference between this and humiliating yourself? But I don't know if Ling Hutuo's arrogant behavior today was the intention of hanging the palace upside down, or was it his own initiative. No matter who it is, he must have come with bad intentions today. Not only him, but most of the guests who came here were unkind, at least not sincerely concerned about Li Guanhai's injury. They wished that Li Guanhai would be invaded by Yin Qi and turn into a walking corpse, and all the geniuses present also wanted to take this opportunity to make a name for themselves. Ling Hutua and his entourage came to the last free seat and sat down. His face was extremely gloomy and his eyes were filled with resentment. Damn it. I will definitely repay today's shame. He swore secretly in his heart, grabbed the silver pot filled with fine wine, and started drinking without using a cup. After finishing the wine in the pot in a few sips, Ling Hutua felt a little better, as if all his troubles had disappeared with the wine. When he was about to reach for the second bottle of wine, he suddenly saw a man opposite him dressed in men's clothing with extremely fair skin secretly putting a bottle of wine into the Xuanhuan bag. Ling Hutuo's eyes lit up. With his eyesight, he could tell at a glance that this person was a woman disguised as a man, and she was also an extremely beautiful woman. She naturally had a pure and unconventional temperament, which was extremely rare. As the most outstanding genius of the current generation in the Xianxian Palace, Ling Hutuo has no shortage of women around him, let alone beauties, but none of them can compare with the girl in front of him. Comparing the two, the beauties he had seen before were simply vulgar and like dung. Ling Hutuo's heart was wild and his eyes were burning. He felt his mouth was dry and his heartbeat was speeding up. He couldn't help but swallow. Immediately afterwards, he filled the jade cup with wine, stood up and came to the girl disguised as a man, with a soft smile on her face, and said, I am Ling Hutuo of Xianxian Palace, may I ask her name? Yang Chaner, who was stealing, was suddenly startled and suddenly became a little unhappy. She raised her eyebrows and deliberately made her voice very magnetic. She said displeasedly, what girl? I'm a boy and I don't have eyes. You? Ling Hutuo was stunned. He didn't expect that this pure girl with a cold and ethereal temperament could have such a bad temper. He just said a word. Why did he get angry? But he didn't get angry because of it. Instead he became even more eager to stop. Since this little girl came here dressed as a man, she obviously didn't want to be recognized. What she just said was indeed a bit rash. Ling Hutuo thought this in his heart, with an apologetic smile on his face, and said, I'm too drunk. I drank 2 more glasses, and my mind is a little confused. I wonder if I have the honor to have a drink with my fellow Taoist. Woolen cloth. I don't like drinking, you have to drink it yourself. Young Chana was not polite at all when she spoke, and her beautiful brows were getting tighter and tighter. This person was really annoying. He kept standing here, making it difficult for him to continue stealing. At this moment, Hutua could no longer maintain his gentlemanly demeanor. His expression was both awkward and embarrassing, especially the strange looks cast around him, which made him feel uncomfortable all over. Damn it, I can't afford to offend Yunwei. How dare you, a little girl, bully me? In this case, let me teach you a lesson and let you know the consequences of the following mistakes. Ling Hutua sneered and pretended to be surprised. Oh, why did this fellow Taoist disguise himself and sneak into the Yunwei Division to eat and drink? Forget it, why did he steal the immortal wine and delicacies? That when he spoke, he deliberately injected spiritual energy into his voice so that everyone present could hear him. Yang Chaner's little heart thumped, feeling bad. Sure enough, as soon as Ling Hutua finished speaking, there were many curious and doubtful looks. The people present, except for the younger generation of geniuses, the rest were all elders from various major sections. They had such vicious eyes. Naturally, they could see through Yang Chaner's disguise at a glance. Ling Hutua looked at Yang Chaner's slightly panicked look and sneered in his heart, but on the surface he was impeccable and asked, Girl, which sect of the immortal sect are you a descendant of? Why do you want to disguise yourself as a man, and why do you want to secretly wear these delicacies and wines? Yang Chana hesitated, not knowing how to answer. Could it be that he sneaked in secretly? She held the corners of her clothes with both hands, feeling very nervous. What if someone thought she was up to no good? This is Yunwei, and even if he uses all his cards, he will never be able to escape. What made Yang Chana's heart tremble even more was Li Yuan, who came first. If he sees through his true identity, he may really have to stay here today. Seeing that she was coy and unwilling to answer, Ling Hutuo became even more proud and said in a cold voice, "It seems that you are here to eat and drink, which is totally unreasonable. Today, all the sages are gathering, and those who come are all well-known people from the upper world. Big shot, you are just a casual cultivator. Who gave you the right to come here?" That he spoke harshly and with righteous indignation, as if Yang Chana had done something outrageous. Listening to a series of scoldings, Yang Chana felt angry and anxious, scolding Ling Hutuo that there was something wrong. More and more guests are looking here, with undisguised sarcasm and ridicule on their faces. "How brave you are to dare to come to Yunwei to eat and drink." Yang Chana felt that things were getting out of control, and just as she was about to run away, a soft voice suddenly came from outside the palace, drowning out all the sounds in the palace. "Do you have any objections to the qualifications I gave her?" Chapter 46, Seeing is not necessarily believing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. As the voice fell, a figure in white, like walking out of a painting, floated into the hall. He wore a long robe with wide sleeves, looked lonely and out of this world. His eyes were cold and indifferent, and his temperament was extraordinary and aloof. His appearance, his style, his temperament, no one in the world can compare with him. Seeing this person, the huge palace was silent for a moment, and then greetings came one after another. "Meet Master Guanhai. Master Guanhai, are you feeling better?" Master Guanhai has a sense of justice and takes risks alone. Such a broad mind can be regarded as a role model for the younger generation. The person who came was Li Guanhai, facing these Taoist teachings, half of which were false and the other half were flattering. Li Guanhai just smiled and nodded in response, and then his eyes fell on Ling Hutuo, who looked a little unhappy. "Who gives you the right to make decisions about my Yunwei Division?" Different questions, same way of asking. Li Guanhai's voice is calm, but there is a majestic power descending. Ling Hutuo's heart trembled heavily. The peer in front of him brought him a strong sense of oppression, almost suffocating him. He used the mysterious skills of the inverted palace to force himself to calm down, and forced a smile on his face, saying, "Master Guanhai misunderstood. I didn't mean that. This girl disguised herself and sneaked into the Yunwei Division. I just worry that she has bad intentions, that's all." It must be said that this Ling Hutuo is quite witty, and his explanation is also watertight and well-reasoned. "Having bad intentions towards my Yunwei Division?" Li Guanhai smiled coldly, staring at him with indifferent eyes, and said, "Are you kidding?" As soon as this was said, the guests present cast contemptuous eyes at Ling Hutuo, looking at him like a fool. Plotting against Yunwei. There were so many big figures from the Taoist sects present. Even if they joined hands, they could not hurt Yunwei at all. How could she, a little girl who looked 15 or 16 years old and whose cultivation level was only in the middle stage of Xuanhuan, have the ability and courage to plot against Yunwei? For a while, all kinds of ridicule and sneer came one after another, mercilessly, although each Taoist sect had its own purpose in coming to Yunwei this time, and they were considered to be on the same front. If there was a chance to ridicule and humiliate each other, they would still be happy to move their lips and watch the excitement. Ling Hutuo's face was extremely embarrassed, and he was roaring in his heart, which was simply crazy. "I really didn't check the almanac when I went out today. First, I was humiliated in public by Li Yuan, then I was rejected by a little girl, and finally I was questioned by Li Guanhai in public, making him a joke of the major Taoist sections." Ling Hutuo's resentment was unprecedentedly strong. He hated Li Yuan, Yang Chana, and Li Guanhai even more. At this time, the follower beside him whispered, "Master, you should apologize." This sentence was like a flame that lit a fuse, which immediately made Ling Hutuo explode. As if he had found an outlet to vent, he slapped back with his backhand, snap. The crisp slap echoed in the palace. Ling Hutuo made an angry move with great force. and directly slapped the follower in the air for several circles, and finally fell to the ground, with his whole face bruised. "Bah! You lowly dog slave, I'm talking to the young master of Guanhai, do you have the right to speak?" Ling Hutuo's eyes were wide open and his teeth were gnashed, his pupils were bloodshot, and his face, which was originally quite heroic, became twisted and hideous because of anger. Where was the demeanor that a Taoist genius should have? Li Guanhai watched all this expressionlessly, and finally said, "This is my Yunwei Division's territory. If you want to teach your servant a lesson, please go outside and teach him a lesson." These words were ruthless and indifferent, and he refused to give Ling Hutuo any face, and was aggressive. Ling Hutuo was so angry that he trembled all over, clenched his fists, and his nails dug into his flesh, but he endured it tightly. He couldn't get angry, and he didn't dare to get angry. As long as he endured today, Ling Hutuo swore that he would make Li Guanhai regret what he did today. Li Guanhai sneered in his heart, turned to look at young Chana who was staring at him blankly, and showed a soft smile on his face like ice and snow melting, and said, "No need to be sneaky, if you like, I will order people to prepare a few £1,000 for you." Hearing this, young Chana woke up immediately, her little heart beat violently, her pretty face was a little hot, and she didn't dare to look at him. Many of the proud daughters of heaven from various sects saw this scene, as if they were drunk, their heads were dizzy, stars were jumping in their eyes, and they were extremely obsessed and yearning. Is there really such a perfect man in the world? As soon as he appeared, all the proud sons of heaven present became foils, dim and dull. Li Guanhai smiled lightly, no longer cared about the girl, turned around and walked through the seats, smiling and responding to the greetings of various sections. He stood below and bowed to Li Yuan, "Father." Li Yuan nodded and motioned him to take the seat. Li Guanhai sat down peacefully, his every move was elegant and majestic, and there was nothing wrong with it. Since he entered the palace, almost everyone's eyes have been watching him for a moment, and dozens of divine thoughts have fallen on him at the same time, wanting to see what's going on. Although Li Guanhai looks like an ordinary person on the surface, with a full complexion and a jade-like spirit, everyone still saw some strange things. For example, his breath was intermittent, not long enough, and not stable enough. There is also the spirit, which seems a bit empty and not as full as it looks on the surface. There is only one reason for this, that is, Li Guanhai is injured, and the injury is not light. His appearance of normality and strength is all disguised, in order to deceive the eyes of the major sects and make them mistakenly think that he is not injured. Thinking of this, the elders of the major sects tacitly understood, and smiled with inexplicable meanings on their faces, began to raise their glasses and drink, and talked and laughed, and the changes in these people's expressions all fell into Li Guanhai's eyes. While responding to the toasts and greetings from the Tianjiao of various sects, he sneered in his heart. A group of self-righteous mediocre people thought that what they saw was true, but they didn't know that what they saw was exactly what Li Guanhai wanted them to see. Now in the minds of the major sects, Li Guanhai is no longer a threat. Everyone knows that he is seriously injured and may be difficult to treat. Then many things that follow will not be suspected of him, and the plan that Yunwei Division has planned for tens of thousands of years can also proceed more smoothly. Chapter 47, See the Power of the Geniuses from the Upper Realm. You are listening at novelfull.audio. The banquet continued, and the interest of the guests did not diminish because of Ling Hutuo, but instead became more and more excited, because they saw through Li Guanhai's appearance and his disguise. They were in a happy mood and naturally wanted to drink a few drinks. It is already a definite fact that Li Guanhai has been invaded by Yin Qi. I believe it will spread throughout the upper world soon. When the time comes, no one knows what kind of disturbance will be caused in the upper world. While the guests were exchanging glasses and chatting happily, young Chana, who was sitting in the last row, stretched her neck and looked up at the front seat. To be precise, she was looking at Li Guanhai. The reason why she came here today was to see how Li Guanhai's injury was. Now it seems that he was indeed seriously injured, and the light wind and clouds outside were just his disguise, in order to deceive the various orthodoxy and prevent them from having unreasonable dissent. Seeing him holding on, young Chana's heart twitched inexplicably, as if being held by an invisible big hand, and she felt a little uncomfortable. Although there was a deep hatred between her and him, after all, he was injured trying to save her this time, which made young Chana really unable to bear to hate him anymore. she was very confused and didn't know what to do. She came down the mountain for revenge, but Li Guanhai's attitude made her hesitate and made her have some doubts about what happened that year. Could there be any hidden secrets in it? Young Chan'er's mind was very confused, and various emotions were lingering in her heart, making her very anxious. At this moment, the rumbling sound and the roar of the ancient blue dragon were heard again in the sky outside the palace. The attention of all the guests was attracted again, and they all frowned, a little displeased, but mostly sarcastic. Who is this, who dares to be so high profile in Yunwei Division? The last person who was so high profile is now hiding in a corner dejectedly and has become the laughing stock of everyone. With such a lesson learned from the past, there are still people who dare to provoke. Immediately afterwards, a huge shadow was cast outside the palace, and all the guests saw a black dragon that covered the sky and the sun, pulling a purple gold chariot, and slowly landed on the ground. When all the guests saw the word Xiahou painted on the flag above the chariot, their pupils could not help but shrink and they were immediately relieved. It turned out that he was from the Xiahou Immortal Dynasty. No wonder he dared to come to the inner island of Yunwei Division with such great fanfare. His momentum was even worse than when Ling Hutua came. The Xiahou Immortal Dynasty had a good relationship with Yunwei. This was known to all women and children in the upper world, so the guests were not surprised. A woman stepped out of the chariot, with a cold and profound expression, a tall figure, and a picturesque face. She exuded the majesty of an emperor, ruling the world and being inviolable. The person who came was none other than Xiahou Aoxue from the Xiahou Immortal Dynasty. As soon as she appeared, the entire palace fell silent for a moment. All the young geniuses present had their eyes fixed on her, unable to move even an inch. Their eyes were full of obsession and admiration. Such a beautiful and powerful empress with imperial majesty is simply the dream lover of all young talents. Putting aside her peerless appearance, as long as he could gain her favor, it would be equivalent to gaining the support of the entire Xiahou Immortal Dynasty. Many young geniuses couldn't help but become a little distraught. Although Xiahou Aoxue seems to have a good relationship with Li Guanhai, and the two families also have plans to marry, things are different now. Li Guanhai has been seriously injured, and his future is dark, and Xiahou Aoxue is not only the future leader of the Xiahou Immortal Dynasty, but her own talent is also at the top of the upper world. Under the decline of one and the other, the gap between the two will only become wider and wider. Thinking of this, many talented people couldn't hold it anymore and came forward to talk to him. However, Xiahou Aoxue didn't even look at these so-called geniuses. She walked straight through the middle of the seats, came to the bottom of the seat and bowed. Aoxue has met Uncle Li. Li Yuan laughed, raised his hand and said, Aoxue, you don't need to be polite. Why are you here? Aren't you taking over many affairs of the Xiahou Immortal Dynasty recently? Xiahou Aoxue replied, those matters are almost settled. Aoxue is worried about Guanhai's injury, so she made a special trip here. Li Yuan nodded and said, well, you are interested, please take a seat quickly. Yes. Xiahou Aoxue bowed and did not sit down at the empty seat next to him. Instead, he came to Li Guanhai and sat with him. Seeing this scene, many geniuses felt envious and jealous. Aoxue, thank you for coming. Li Guanhai's smile, coupled with his bloodless lips, made people feel very distressed. It's not hard. Xiahou Aoxue stared at him for a moment, shook her head, and then asked, how is your injury? No problem. Li Guanhai replied calmly as ever, and seemed not to take this matter to heart. Let me see. Xiahou Aoxue directly held his cold palm, lifted up his sleeves, pressed his meridians, and began to check the injuries in his body. As time went by, her eyebrows wrinkled tighter and tighter, and finally she opened her phoenix eyes, looked closely at him who was always smiling, and asked, how can I help you? Li Guanhai held her delicate, white and jade-like hand, leaned slightly, and whispered in her ear, don't worry, I'm fine. Xiahou Aoxue trembled all over, feeling numb, and her head was a little dizzy. Two groups of blush appeared on her beautiful and majestic face, and her beauty was full of spring. Her heart was beating fast, her face was red and her ears were hot, and it was difficult to stay calm. The pride of the various sects saw them being affectionate and chatting happily, and they were so envious that they wanted to replace them, but they didn't have the ability, courage and qualifications, let alone taking action. Even if they showed the slightest idea, they would be destroyed in an instant, and the sect behind them would also be destroyed by the thunder of Yunwei. At this moment, an elder from Tongyu Valley put down the jade cup and said with a smile, "Oh, the wine is almost finished. It's really boring to sit like this. Why not find some fun to liven up the atmosphere? What do you think?" As soon as these words came out, the laughter and chatter in the palace suddenly became much smaller, and everyone's attention was focused. Who among the people present was not a smart person? They immediately understood the implication of the words of Elder Song of Tongyu Valley, and they all agreed. Elder Song is right. I think it's better to do this. The young geniuses of various sects are here. Why not let these younger generations learn from each other? Well, I agree. This is a rare opportunity and should not be missed. Yes, yes. It's a good opportunity for our stubborn disciples to see the style of the top geniuses in the upper world, to dampen their spirits and inspire them. After saying this, all the elders of the sects turned their eyes to Li Yuan, who was in the first place, with some expectation. No matter how much they talk here, if the general flag master doesn't nod, they will be in vain. What kind of person is Li Yuan? Naturally, he saw through their idea at a glance, and didn't rush to agree or refuse, but set his eyes on his son to see what he meant. Li Guanhai's heart was as clear as a mirror. Seeing his father looking at him, he smiled and nodded. The tacit understanding between father and son is beyond words. Li Yuan looked at the elders of the Taoist sects below, nodded and smiled. Since fellow Taoists are interested in this, I would also like to broaden my horizons and see the power of the geniuses of the upper realm. Chapter 48, Master Guanhai, can you teach me a trick? You are listening at novelfull.audio. The Tianjiao people here have been waiting for this sentence for a long time, and they are eager to jump in and fight. They are all young talents from various major traditions, invincible, arrogant and confident as anyone, but their reputation is very small, and compared with the geniuses of the top divine religions, they seem to be unknown, so they need a chance to prove themselves and become famous all over the world. And this banquet hosted by Yunwei attracted the attention of everyone in the world and was undoubtedly the best opportunity to make a name for himself. As long as he can shine in this competition, he will definitely be famous in the upper world and make his reputation like thunder. Thinking of this, many geniuses are eager to give it a try, and they can't hold it anymore. If the elders around them hadn't stopped them, they would have jumped on it and become the leader. After all, the elder is an elder. He has seen a lot of the world and has a lot of experience. He knows that there are many talented people in the upper world, and there are countless masters. If he is beaten up by others when he comes out, wouldn't he be humiliating himself? It doesn't matter if a person is embarrassed, the orthodoxy behind him will also become a laughing stock. Although the truly top forces such as Beiwu Sword Domain, Baikan Palace, and Lingxiao City are not present, there is no guarantee that there will not be Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon. Therefore, the safest way is to wait and see what happens and wait for opportunities. At this moment, Ling Hutuo, who was sitting in the corner drinking wine, slammed his jade cup on the table, stood up and left the table. His expression regained his majesty. Ling Hutuo of the Hanging Hall, I've already made a fool of myself here. Which fellow Taoist is willing to give me some advice? He cupped his hands and looked around, full of momentum. He had been greatly embarrassed today, and now there was a good opportunity to save his face. Of course he would not miss it, so he jumped out resolutely. Since fellow Taoist master is so elegant, Qinglei sect Feng Qiu, need to ask for advice. That as soon as he finished speaking, a young man jumped out from the banquet. His whole body was shrouded in divine light, silver light was flowing, and his aura was terrifying. He had reached the middle stage of Xian Shui, and he could be regarded as a genius of his generation. Ling Hutuo glanced at him, snorted coldly, and took action without any nonsense. He punched out, his fist rubbed the air, and the void exploded. Countless runes flashed, and the sound of the Tao rolled. The power was so terrifying that it seemed like it could collapse mountains. Ling Hutuo's shots were like lightning and he moved forward without hesitation. The Qinglei sect's genius named Feng Qiu was shocked. He didn't expect that he would take action as soon as he was told. Without any hesitation, facing this punch, he felt great pressure, and the space around him seemed to be distorted by this extremely powerful force. Feng Qiu's eyes flashed with golden light, he shouted loudly, and pushed out with a palm, shaking the space. The fists and palms collided, like two stars colliding, and violent ripples of mana spread out, threatening to overturn tables and chairs. The elders of all the great avenues began to use their mysterious skills, and with a wave of their sleeves, they formed a barrier in front of them to isolate the ripples of mana. Puff. Suddenly, there was a muffled groan in the field, and a figure flew backwards from the burst of divine light, spitting out a mouthful of blood in mid-air, and fell to the ground in a very embarrassed state. All the guests looked at each other and saw that the person who fell to the ground was Feng Qiu from Qinglei sect. Qiu'er, that the elder of Qinglei sect ducked to Feng Qiu's side and hurriedly used magic power to stabilize his injury. His brows furrowed tighter and he looked at Ling Hutua with a sneer in his eyes. Feng Qiu was seriously injured. The bones in his right arm were shattered and his internal organs were also seriously injured. Although it was not fatal, it would take some time to recover. The younger generation will learn from each other and just hit the mark. Why do you have to be so heavy-handed? Is this how the Xianxian Palace teaches you? The Qinglei sect elder suppressed his anger and asked coldly. Ling Hutua smiled and said, in a martial arts competition, swords and guns have no eyesight and fists and feet are ruthless. If I had used less force just now, I would have been injured. Oh, okay, you are indeed a formidable person. The elder of Qinglei sect sneered, helped Feng Qiu back to his seat, and used his energy to heal his injuries. This is Yunwei Si after all. No matter how angry he is, he doesn't dare to act rashly and can only keep this matter in his heart secretly. Ling Hutua smiled modestly and politely on the surface, but in his heart he was very contemptuous of Feng Qiu and the elders of Qinglei sect. If you can't beat him, don't fight. Now that you're on stage, you have to be prepared to get hurt. Is there any other Taoist fellow who is willing to give me some advice? Ling Hutua was arrogant and his voice was hearty, resounding in the magnificent palace. All the geniuses looked at each other, and for a moment no one accepted the challenge. From the brief fight between Ling Hutua and Feng Qiu just now, we can see that his strength is very powerful and should not be underestimated. It was not easy to defeat Feng Qiu in the middle stage of Xian Shui with just one punch. This makes many talented people who are eager to try feel uncertain, fearing that they will become famous instead of becoming famous. Ling Hutua raised the corners of his mouth, with a disappointed expression on his face, and sighed, oh, everyone here is a genius in the upper world, don't you even have the courage to end it? As soon as these words came out, many young geniuses had angry faces on their faces. They are all geniuses praised by thousands of people. They have never encountered any setbacks since they were young, let alone opponents. Therefore, they have arrogant personalities and cannot be violated, but Ling Hutuo's words were a slap in their faces. How could they, who were arrogant, endure this? At the moment, several geniuses took offense and wanted to compete with Ling Hutua and teach him a lesson. The young man with long brown hair flashed forward and was already standing opposite Ling Hutua. He said in a cold voice, Xingyun sect Chang Shouju, please enlighten me. As soon as he finished speaking, he took the lead and took action. Mana surged around his body, and golden runes condensed on his fingertips. With a cry, a bright white light shot out, like a meteor falling, incredibly fast. Wherever the white light passes, the void seems to be penetrated, leaving a black shadow area along the way, as if the void is divided. Ling Hutua frowned and was cautious in his heart. This finger was menacing and powerful and should not be underestimated. His right hand turned into a sword finger, and he slashed from top to bottom, slashing out a golden sword energy. The sword energy collided with the white light, and with a bang, the ground shook and the mountains shook. The deafening sound of the collision spread out of the palace and resounded throughout the world. The raging waves of magic power swept out, seemingly capable of destroying mountains and seas. Ling Hutua and Chang Shouju each took a step back. This move was evenly matched, and they were evenly matched. It's interesting. Let's see if you can take my move. Ling Hutua sneered, and a majestic magic power condensed in front of him into a colorful evil tiger with teeth and claws, and roared like a tiger, resounding through the sky, making people's blood boil. The expressions of all the Taoist elders who were watching the battle all changed. Linghu Tuo was actually able to condense his spiritual power, which showed that his control over his spiritual power had reached a level that was so meticulous and miraculous. He is worthy of being the most outstanding young genius in the current generation of Xianxian Palace, and his talent is indeed extraordinary. Chang Xiuzhu was equally shocked. He could feel the power and terror of Linghu Tuo's blow. Frankly speaking, he was not sure he could take it, but the arrow was already on the string, the sword was unsheathed, and there were so many people from the Taoist church watching. Although he was not sure, he could not retreat and could only bite the bullet. Xian Shuai's momentum burst out in the middle period, and the strong mana flowed through the meridians. He pushed forward with both palms, and the waves of mana rose into the sky, one wave higher than the other, hitting the colorful evil tiger formed by the condensed mana. The two energies were in a stalemate for a moment, and the ferocious tiger tore apart the wave of mana that could move mountains and seas, roared wildly, and crashed into Chang Xiuzhu. If Chang Xiuzhu is hit this time, he will most likely be in trouble. Even if he survives by chance, his origin and meridians will be irreversibly damaged. At this moment, Chang Xiuzhu's master, the third elder of the Starfall sect, suddenly appeared. With a wave of his sleeve, he rolled out a stream of chaotic black light, easily dispelling the colorful evil tiger formed by mana. Seeing that his attack was blocked, Linghu Tuo couldn't help but frown, a little displeased, and asked coldly, "Senior, this fellow Taoist and I are competing in a fair competition. What do you mean by suddenly intervening? If that move had hit you, believe it or not, you wouldn't be able to get out of Yunwei Division today." The third elder looked at him coldly, his voice was as cold as the harsh winter, and the threat was clear in his words. Linghu Tuo's face was as dark as water, and then he sneered, "Is this the so-called Xinyan sect's most outstanding talent today? If you can't defeat your opponent, let your elders come out to support you. I admire you." His words were filled with guns and sticks, and every sentence was heartbreaking, and he did not shy away from cynicism. Chang Xiuzhu's face turned red with anger, his chest heaved violently, and he stared at Linghu Tuo, but there was nothing he could do, because his skills were indeed inferior to others. If his master hadn't taken action in time just now, he would have fallen by now. The only fault is that his cultivation is shallow and his strength is too weak, otherwise he wouldn't have to suffer this humiliation. Xiuzhu, practicing Taoism is never smooth sailing. Some setbacks are not enough to shake the Taoist heart, but you have to learn lessons and treat all setbacks as a kind of training, so that you can make progress. Listening to Linghu Tuo's sarcastic words, the third elder acted very calmly. Seeing Chang Xiuzhu's anger, he explained in a gentle voice. "Disciple understands, thank you master for your enlightenment." Chang Xiuzhu bowed deeply, and the anger and unwillingness in his heart dissipated a lot. After the master and apprentice returned to their seats, many orthodox elders cast their eyes with admiration and appreciation. This third elder of the Xinyan sect is a rare and good master. He not only knows how to teach his disciples how to practice, but also how to teach them how to cultivate their minds and how to eliminate negative emotions and worries in their hearts. This is actually very important for monks, because when monks practice, they need to be pure and have few desires, and the most taboo is to think wildly, which is likely to give birth to inner demons. If anyone else is willing to step down and teach me a lesson, please come forward. Linghu Tuo, who had won 2 games in a row, was a little swollen. He walked from the front row to the back row, and then from the back row to the front row. Wherever he looked, all the geniuses were avoiding him, not wanting to fight with him. Linghu Tuo laughed wildly, finally regaining the lost face, which made him feel much better. At this time, his eyes suddenly fell on the man in white clothes below Li Yuan who looked like an immortal, and he curled his lips and sneered. "I have always heard that young Master Guanhai has the ability to become a god and is famous in the upper world. Today is a rare opportunity. Linghu Tuo boldly asks young Master Guanhai to teach me a move. Isn't it convenient? Warm reminder. If you find that clicking the next page will force you to jump to other websites, please use the chapter error or contact us at the bottom to inform us. We will handle it as soon as possible. Thank you for your understanding.